Hello, this is part 2 of our recording on chapter 5, the Caribbean, and we're continuing talking about cultural coherence and diversity. So, linguistics, religion, and ethnic differences are are seen throughout the Caribbean. And the Caribbean really has a common historical and social process that holds the region together as one distinct region. The imprint of more than 7 million African slaves has created a Neo Africa in the region. And the process of what we call creolization has really blended cultures in the region. So, the cultural imprint of colonization. So, European colonization really destroyed indigenous societies, as I mentioned in the prior section. Um, and it really imposed a different social system and culture within the region. Rival European powers introduced their own cultural practices to the Caribbean. Now, slaves were brought because of the decimation of the native people. So we did have native people here in the Caribbean, but when after or and during European colonization, again, the Europeans brought a bunch of epidemics that wiped out the cultural population. So because then we had a lack of people to work on the plantations and work in agriculture, slaves were then brought in from Africa. And the slaves were first introduced in the 16th century. And this forced migration was part of a larger, more complex African diaspora. The influx of slaves combined with the elimination of the indigenous people reconfigured the demography in the region. And the intact transfer of African religions and languages did not occur. Instead, languages, customs, and beliefs were then blended after the Africans arrived. Now, we have what we call maroon societies, and these are communities of runaway slaves. Many of these settlements were short-lived, while others have endured. These maroon societies reveal a survival of African traditions, including farming practices, housing designs, community organization, and language. Now, especially notable are maroon communities in Suriname, French Guiana, and recently there have been pressures to modernize and extract resources that have really placed these maroon communities in conflict with the state and private investors. We also see African religions in this area. Many African religions were diffused throughout the Caribbean, and many Afro-religious traditions have evolved into unique forms that have clear ties with West Africa. The most widely practiced religions are Vodou, Santería, and Oblate. Now, we do have some indentured labor that has come from Asia. Because the colonizers were fearful of labor shortages following the abolition of slavery, plantation owners started to import indentured laborers from Southeast Asia, and East Asia. Now, this legacy is clearest in the Suriname, Guyana, and Trinidad, as well as Tobago. In Suriname, for example, more than 1/3 of the population is of South Asian descent, and nearly 1/5 is Javanese. Many former English colonies have smaller populations of Chinese ancestry. The creolization, this refers to the blending of African, European, and some Amerindian cultural elements. Creole identities are complex and they exhibit in music, literature, and art. The language for the dominant languages in the region are from European descent, mostly Spanish, French, English, and Dutch. But many Creole languages have developed. People had wanted to identify with their own culture, forming the Creole language. Music in the region is also very important. The region is the birthplace of music such as reggae, calypso, merengue, and rumba, and some other forms of music as well. It is the roots of the modern Caribbean music that reflect the combination of African rhythms and European forms of melody and verse. Notable is the development of the steel pan drums. The Caribbean music is very popular all over the world. And this is also the birthplace of Bob Marley, who had political resistance as a theme in his music. Sports in the region, the Caribbean really has a popularity of soccer, but also baseball is the dominant sport for much of the Caribbean. And Major League Baseball actually recruits quite a bit from countries such as Dominican Republic. Okay, moving on to the geopolitical framework. The Caribbean colonial history is really a patchwork of rival powers from Spain, England, the Netherlands, and France. And these countries were especially active in the region. However, by the mid 19th century, European dominance started to wane, and the United States became more influential, especially following the US Monroe Doctrine, which would not tolerate European military in the Western Hemisphere. The United States also ushered in a period of neocolonialism, which was the indirect control of one country or region by another through economic and cultural domination rather than by direct military or political control. Contemporary geopolitics are shifting as the region's strategic importance has faded in the past Cold War era. Life in America's backyard, which I kind of find it a little humorous. So, the United States really continues to exert considerable influence in the Caribbean region. The US influence began in the early 20th century when, during the construction of the Panama Canal, and as well as various development packages and military interventions from the US. The US business continues to influence the region. We also have the US Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Now, as a Commonwealth of the United States, Puerto Rico is both part of the Caribbean and apart from it. We have various independent movements throughout the 20th centuries that have attempted to separate Puerto Rico from the United States. The island depends on the US investment and welfare programs. And since the 1950s, Puerto Rico shifted from an agrarian economy to an industrial one. And it remains one of the most industrialized regions in the Caribbean, although it does show signs that that underdevelopment and poverty are still present in Puerto Rico. Now, when we look at Cuba, so since the 1950s, Cuba has really embarked on a socialist program, and it's been at odds with the United States. The island state was at the center of the Cold War geopolitics as the Soviet Union supported Cuba. A new era for Cuba may be forthcoming as former leaders are passing on, and Cuban government is also exploring oil in their territorial waters. And this is a possible economic opportunity for them. So we have seen a struggle for independence really beginning in 1804 when Haiti 1804 in Haiti, and it has continued for 200 years throughout the region. Political independence has not translated into economic independence. So, some independent movements that we've seen, the region exhibited many revolutionary periods since the 19th century. Most colonies did gain some independence by mid to late 20th century. The present day colonies, so what did those look like? Britain retains several what they call crown colonies in the region, and France retains several departments. Most of the Dutch islands are considered autonomous, but they remain part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Then we also have economic integration, which remains difficult throughout the region. The scattered islands, the linguistic diversity, and the limited economic resources really hinder formation of any kind of meaningful regional trade bloc. It's more common to see economic cooperation between groups of islands with shared colonial backgrounds. One notable regional association is the Caribbean Community and Common Market. And this was formed in 1972, and it currently has 13 full member states with numerous associate members. Now, looking at the economic and social development of the region, the population of the region is economically better off than most of sub Saharan Africa, South Asia, and China. We do have social gains in education, health, and life expectancy as well. Historically, the Caribbean's links to the global economy were based on agricultural exports, but now tourism, offshore financial services, and assembly plants are important. Agriculture has declined in importance because of commodity prices. This has been because of a decline in preferential trade agreements, for example, the North American Trade Agreement, as well as a loss of soil productivity. Remember, linking that back to deforestation and soil degradation. Sugar, both sugar cane and rum were economic mainstays of the region. Sugarcane really remains important, but it has declined. Coffee now is important in many local areas. Other commodities include bananas, flowers, and spices. Then we've also seen assembly plant industrialization occur here. Many islands have invited foreign investors to establish assembly plants. The first was developed in Puerto Rico in the 1950s, and this was called Operation Bootstrap. Through the creation of free trade zones, we have seen duty-free and tax-exempt industrial parks for foreign corporations, where the Caribbean has increasingly attracted foreign businesses. Offshore banking. So we do see offshore banking most closely associated with the Bahamas. Offshore banking centers really offer specialized services that are confidential and tax exempt. And this really began in the 1920s. Today, banks are not taxed, and they really only have offices that just has one person working in them, and everything is handled electronically. We also see a rise in online gambling being a new industry. Tourism. Here is myself when I took a cruise in the Bahamas. So with tourism, there are environmental, locational, and economic factors that contribute to the importance of tourism. Key economic activities are both for large and small islands. So tourism is really throughout the area. There are both positive and negative components to the development of tourism as an economic strategy. And the tourism industry in this region really depends on the US economy. Now we do see when we're looking at social development, we do have a record of economic growth that has been inconsistent, but it measures the measures of social development are they're generally strong. Most Caribbean nations fare well on the Human Development Index. And we do have a reliance upon remittances. Remember, that is when people work out of the country and send money back home to their home country. And so this is a really important source of income, which contributes to social and economic development. Many of the population inhabitants, though they are chronically underemployed and they have poor housing and are overly dependent on foreign remittances, they are socially better off than some other regions throughout the world. Now, when we take a look at gender, politics, and culture, the matriarchal basis of the Caribbean household is often singled out as a distinguishing characteristic. Female local power does not necessarily equate with status. Women are oftentimes principal earners of cash and more likely to complete secondary education. We do see signs of greater political involvement with females. In terms of education, many Caribbean states have excelled in educating their citizens. Literacy is the norm. Education is expensive, but it is considered essential for development. And many states do, however, express a frustration over what is called brain drain. Brain drain is when a country's population is educated in their country, but then they move out to another country to earn and they contribute to the other country's economic growth. And this corresponding brain drain, really doesn't always have return migrants contributing to the Caribbean economies. So that concludes our recorded lecture on Chapter 5, the Caribbean.